Welcome to this episode of Unbottleneck, an experimental marketing podcast and vlog. I'm your host, Steve Wiedemann, and today with us is Rand Fishkin, founder of Sparktoro, author of Lost and Founder, and most recognizably, the founder and former CEO of Moz, formerly SEO Moz. Wait, why do you always get the longer intro? I feel like, hi, I'm nobody, and with me today is deep breath and go. It's amazing, and something I'm sure you're super proud of.
I mean, if you want in the future, Steve, when you introduce me, you can be like, here's some guy with a beard. Done.
I love it. And it's such an honor to finally connect off email. I know we've had a few emails over the years, and you've always been so supportive of all the folks that have been a part of Moz. And I remember one time I said, hey, the guys here would love to get some Moz t-shirts, and you loaded us up, and we were all just like, Rand is the man. And we were so grateful for that. And I think the first time we met was actually in right around 2009. I think we were at SMX Advanced, and I think I was chugging down a can of Link Juice. Do you remember the Link Juice thing?
Oh my God.
So going back to the days, right? So long time ago.
I am Rand Fishkin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Sparktoro, which is just launched in April, aka the worst time to launch a software marketing business in 90 years, probably. But Sparktoro is a tiny little startup. It's just me and my co-founder, Casey Henry. We worked together at my previous company, Moz. And Casey and I are building a tool for audience research and intelligence. And it's surprisingly, Steve, it's going pretty okay. So that we can talk about that. In addition to that, I used to host a video series with Moz called Whiteboard Friday that I started there. I was the longtime CEO and founder of Moz, of course. And I do a lot of speaking, blogging on all sorts of topics, but a lot of stuff around, I would say I am a relatively vocal critic of a lot of things big tech. And as I think many, many more people are becoming. And I am also an outspoken person on topics around politics and ethics and marketing. I have a lot of strong opinions. I hope they are loosely held. I'm happy to be disabused of my notions via data and experience. And I also wrote a book that was published just after I left Moz called Lost and Founder.
That's amazing. I do some teaching at some of the local colleges, and I always remind those students who are interested in getting into a career in SEO that you've got to be a little bit of schizophrenic, right? You've got to be that analytical person who can look at data and numbers. You've got to be, that technical person who's comfortable getting into code and looking at some things. You've got to be a little bit experienced with understanding buyer behavior and psychology. You've also got to be a little bit charismatic, and for an introvert to also be an extrovert, it's really tough to do. And, and as an SEO, those are some traits that really sort of take this big inbound marketing percentage of people who are into it down to like the top 2% of people who can be both, or all of those different disciplines. But then you, on top of all of that, you have to do a lot of the business stuff too. I remember going through a lot of funding and trying to manage and run a business. So how do you add that on top of all the different things that are the responsibilities of somebody in the SEO world?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't sleep, obviously.
No. So to be fair, I actually am pretty good about work-life balance. And I would say Casey and I kind of designed Sparktoro to be that way, because my Moz experience, you're right, was very overwhelming in terms of time commitment and sort of sucking away most of all of my 30s, almost all of my 20s. And I really did not want to do that again, right? To have that intense lack of life balance. So yeah, Sparktoro is very different in that respect. But I like the business side of things, or at least I like structuring it in ways that work well. And I think that if you Obviously, I have a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity on this front, but if you outsource the things that you're not great at and focus on the things you are good at, you can generally do pretty well, right? So we have
Right.
some good lawyers, we have some good accounting folks and tax folks, and that means that Casey and I really get to focus on just
Doing what you enjoy.
and what we're good at, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, great. I didn't get to talk about me, but I don't have as much nearly at all to say. So those people that are kind of new to our podcast, I'm Steve Wiedemann, webmaster turned marketer. I'm probably best known in my peer group as one of the guys who worked for Walt Disney Parks and Resorts Online. I ran the paid search and some organic for Disneyland Adventures by Disney. I did a lot of ebook and affiliate marketing type things back in the old Mike Philistine days. Remember that, Rand? Back when affiliate was kind of crazy. I spent 2 years in agency and promised myself I'd never do that again. That was not a fun experience. And I started freelance consulting around 2010. Now running a small, amazing team here in La Mirada, and I'm also teaching at UC San Diego and Cal State Fullerton, which is kind of like, it's been my dream. And in the same way, I think that you really enjoy the business side of things, where I run from it or put my head in the sand. I run toward teaching, so I really enjoy that. And I always wondered, because you were so amazing at those Whiteboard Fridays, have you ever considered going into teaching or doing anything in the teaching world?
I mean, my hope is that what I do with videos and with blogging and writing and events and podcasts and
Right.
webinars and all that kind of stuff is teaching.
It is.
I think it's less formal and structured, which works well for me. I have some, I guess, sort of an anti-authoritarian bent around me, right? So I appreciate and understand universities and credentialing, but I also find a great deal of value and a lot of reward in helping folks who don't necessarily have the funds or the access to take advantage of those. And I love what the internet does for making learning possible for many more folks.
Right. Yeah, my daughter's an artist. She loves painting and drawing, and she's kind of the same way. She's like, I want to do this one day, but I don't want to do it in a structured environment where I'm required to do certain things and limits my creativity around what I'm allowed to do.
No MFA, one of the big programs for her.
So our topics today are, of course, we've already been talking about it, being an entrepreneur in the internet marketing world, stories and maybe some accolades, and just talking shop, SEO, SEM, and influencer marketing. First, in the entrepreneur side of things, you had some news happen recently. And do you want to talk a little bit about some of the transition of what happened?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So this is, relatively insider baseball, but for folks who don't know, I had started Moz and SEO Moz, right? The company that became Moz with my mom, Jillian. I was the CEO for a long time and then stepped down from that role. I stayed at the company and I remained the chairman of the board of directors, right? So a venture-backed company will have a board of directors that includes, investors and insiders, usually the CEO. Well, always the CEO, often some insiders as well, often an independent board member too. And in May, I proposed to the board of directors at Moz that I step down from the role, that we find someone for the independent seat, that we find someone for my seat. And as of that Saturday, I signed the paperwork, DocuSigned the paperwork to make that official. So I am no longer on Moz's board of directors. And taking my seat is Asia Arangio, who's the founder of Demand Maven, great sort of SaaS consultancy, software as a service consultancy. I think she's based in Atlanta, very, very super smart, right? Has seen tons and tons of SaaS companies. So I'm hoping that she can help Moz kind of transform its growth path. And then filling the independent seat is Tara Reid, who's the CEO and founder of Apps Without Code. And both those folks are extraordinary, have done amazing things. And I think that they will be much appreciated by the Moz board. You know, Moz
I'm
has
sure.
been, I don't know, Steve, if you recall, right? But Moz was sort of like, it was the leading SEO software for a long time, right? Market leader by a mile for many, many years. And then sort of in the last 5-6 years, really, it has been overtaken significantly by two competitors, SEMrush and Ahrefs. And I think you know, a lot of that is Moz sort of taking its eye off the SEO ball. And that was a decision that I foolishly made at the end of my CEO tenure there.
I didn't know that.
And then some of it is, I think, Moz not being able to step up its product and engineering culture. You know, it's always been a great company when it comes to marketing and content and teaching people, great community, really good participant in its ecosystem, both, you know, locally and around the world. I think it made some smart acquisitions with Stat Analytics, for example, Rob Bucci's company up in Vancouver. But yeah, it's been kind of a rocky, not a, you know, it's not on the downswing, but it's very much plateaued the last few years. And if you're a venture-backed company, that does not work well with the model, right? You gotta,
I can imagine. Yeah,
you gotta grow very quickly in order to satisfy your shareholders.
You know, I remember writing a post on grassroots SEO on the community blog, right? And I was like, I put my heart and soul into it, and I remember it getting promoted. I think you promoted it's like the Moz blog, and I felt like an appreciated member of the community. I felt like you were the hub of the community at the time, and I had so much loyalty toward that because I felt like I was part of something. And then something changed at one point, and there was a email going out, hey, we're changing some things, and you know, we're not really going to focus as much on community on the community side. And you know, it just kind of shifted the dynamic of it. The passion kind of died a little bit, and maybe that's what you're referring to. Some, you know, 5 years ago when a lot of those changes started happening, it really disconnected a lot of us that felt like, you know, that was our family, you know.
Yeah, no, I think Moz had a very kind of deep community feel, very close knit community feel for a long time. And certainly I think the decision, like I said, to go broader than SEO, this was around 2013,
right.
Was, yeah, a big part of that, like struggle. And to be honest, Steve, right, like I wrote about this in the blog post announcing this change, but in retrospect, I believe, I'm not sure I was ever able to convince Moz's leadership that this is what happened, but I believe that what happened was we were feeling the effects of competition, right? Sort of, you know, at the time, everybody from like Majestic to Systrix to
Raven
Ahrefs,
and
SEMrush,
and Brighton,
yeah, all these other competitors coming into the field. Right. And Moz foolishly at the leadership and board level inferred that what was happening was that we were tapping out the market, right? That essentially the SEO market wasn't growing as fast, that we were getting to market saturation. And so, you know, the decision was made, oh, let's expand into content and social media marketing and email and PR and all these other disciplines, and we'll try to build products for that and take our eye kind of off the SEO ball and the focus off of SEO as a community and the exclusive market that we're serving. And then when we did that, of course, I think that gave all those competitors just a ton more opening, right? Because Moz was no longer as difficult a competitor to sort of beat out. And so, yeah, SEMrush and Ahrefs in particular took advantage of that, and, you know, recognized that this was a huge and growing market. I don't think SEO has ever been bigger than it is today.
No, right? It's still growing. There's still such an affinity and interest, and more now thanks to pandemic than ever. I know the off-premises challenges that our restaurant chains have, you know, is only solved by search. You know, those folks looking for keywords such as, you know, restaurants with outdoor seating and, you know, restaurants that are still open, and, you know, and then addressing some of those search terms, you know, both on and off the website. It's more critical than ever, I think. You know, I remember one of the things that I was excited about was I used to follow David Mim's top local ranking factors. And then Moz brought him in, and then everything kind of moved over to Moz, and I was really excited to see where that would go. And I never really found out if there was a correlation to him joining and the growing of Moz local or not. But what can you tell us a little background on what happened with the kind of the local SEO segment of what Moz was doing?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I was always, good friends with David, thought the world of him, and wanted to work with him. Right. So
who wouldn't?
Yeah. He's just terrifically talented guy. And when Moz raised its big round of investment in 2012, one of the pitches to investors that I had was essentially like, hey, one of the unexplored and high opportunity fields for us to get into is local SEO. That's something that we've really never helped with in a very direct way. And at the time, I don't know if you recall, but like local SEO was very much about kind of citation matching and management and sort of inter-platform dependencies, and a lot of Google's rankings relied on that. Today, much less so, if any. But at the time, that was hugely important. And so David had this product that he had built with a developer called Get Listed.
Okay,
I remember basically
getlisted.org.
Right? Sorry?
Was it getlisted.org? Is that what it was?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to David and was like, hey, man, what do you think about joining the Moz team, working with a couple of engineers here, building out, your sort of dream product suite for local? You'll be in charge of that division. You'll be the head of product for it. And David liked the idea. So we ended up completing that transaction, I think maybe late 2012, early 2013.
Sounds about right.
And then that product launched. It had a very rapid growth path. So it grew very quickly to $5 or $6 million in revenue over the course of just a few years, maybe 3 years, 4 years. But there were two big challenges around it. One was it had sort of been built, I think, by some folks in the leadership team. I won't get into the particulars, but there were some internal politics around how it was built. David and I were both very passionate about the self-service side of it. Like you should be able to get your restaurant on board, and anybody get theirs. And there was, a particular part of Moz's leadership that were much more passionate about, like, let's go to Wells Fargo Bank and get 5,000 bank locations, into Moz local.
I remember getting pitched when we were doing some platform analysis for one of our restaurant chains, and Moz fell into it. I'm like, I didn't know Moz had enterprise, and it.
Yeah. And I think, look, I don't think Moz ever got great at it. I think they've mostly dropped enterprise now, although, there even a year ago, there was still like, how do we get enterprise working? Right. And I think a lot of that was just like who had been hired into the leadership team and their experiences. There was sort of this anti-self-service bias from that. And David got very frustrated. I got very frustrated. He, of course, left a couple years before I did.
Wow. I know if you were going to do something with local, you can't just have the one piece of it, right? The data management, of course, it's so important. Like you said, less important now than some other signals, but you'd have to address and help the marketer not just look at data management, but elements of their local landing page now, inbound links to the local landing page specifically. Some citations, I would say the ones that I'd focus on, if anything, would be those that are really kind of true local, like actual yourcity.gov/business directory or yourindustry.com/ whatever. And then reviews and ratings, and being able to manage all of those things, with a dashboard could take a lot of work. And I can imagine, what a struggle that was just kind of getting into it, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my sense is that the product team initially with David's leadership did a phenomenal job. And then it became more challenging over time for them to kind of keep up and turn the corner. And there was just, a lot of the focus was, in my opinion, in the wrong place, which is on enterprise sales instead of
Sure.
how do we make the product great and make people desperate to want to buy this and make it the best product in the field.
Right.
In many ways, I think Moz was in local, even, a few years ago, the best product in its field, but
we recommended it like crazy to all the local businesses that came to us. Look, we can't afford a big consulting retainer, but we're a local business. What do we do?
Yeah.
Well, it's local.
Yeah. It was so inexpensive, right? Compared to like Yex that was, I can't remember what the pricing difference was,
like
but Moz
$400 or something. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and
pretty up
Moz
there.
was like 100 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
So
that.
it was just much, much cheaper, which worked well for a lot of local businesses. I love David's passion around that too, right? Like he was so insistent that the price be incredibly low because he was like, I know lots of local business owners. I know what they can afford. I know what their margins are like. And, this stuff was, the price points that Yext and others were offering were to him unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
it's really challenging for a small business when most of the money comes out of the business owner's pocket, not out of a marketing budget.
Right.
So I'd love to hear more about your transition to Sparktoro, and as an entrepreneur, what's next? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Is this it? Is this kind of what you're thinking? It can be the next sort of legacy for you.
Gosh, I very much hope so. Like Steve, I am building Sparktoro in a very different kind of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not raising venture, trying to be a great product and a great business, but not necessarily a big one.
Right.
I don't have passion or interest in having hundreds of employees or,
You and me both.
Yeah, growing.
We've always stayed small, usually under 10 if we can do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that unfortunately in the tech field and in the startup world in general, there's like a, I don't know, frustrating bias and sort of a media culture
Stigma.
And, and pressure to grow big because that's how you show that you're impressive, right? Like, oh, how adorable, you're building your cute little lifestyle business, right? That's always used as a pejorative.
Sure.
And then when you reflect on what's actually good for, your health, your financial progress, your community, the world around you, macro and microeconomics, what is good is lots of small businesses in competition with each other.
Mm-hmm.
What's really terrible for the world and the environment and politics and economics is a few big companies with a ton of power and leverage over an entire field, right? We can see that.
Amazon, Google, yeah.
Yeah, right. The FANG companies, right, that sort of epitomize that, but they are not alone. This is very much a power wealth concentration problem that furthers income inequality and furthers, obviously concentration of political power and furthers lots of ugly externalities. Capitalism just wasn't designed to work with a few monopolies, which is why there historically have been anti-monopoly laws.
Yeah. Even now, there's a lot of those things happening with Google. I mean, we hear about it every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, nothing's happened yet, but there are discussions about things happening and potentials for things to happen. So we'll see. I mean, Google has done a very good job of lobbying many of the politicians here in the US and being a huge campaign contributor. And as a result, maybe immunize themselves from a lot of the challenges they might face. But, recognizing all of that and looking at all of that and then saying, I want to build a small, profitable business that becomes as big as it should be, right? I'm obviously not going to stop its growth. I am going to keep investing in Sparktoro, becoming a better product for its customers, becoming being a great place to work for its employees, which is just me and Casey right now.
So the focus isn't growth, it's just creating an amazing product.
Yeah. I mean, I think growth stems from that, right? But I am not going to do things like, hey, let's go raise millions or tens of millions of dollars. Let's get obsessed with how do we prevent anyone from leaving the platform, right? Like one of the big things in software as a service is this obsession with churn rate, I'm maybe I'm the only person in SaaS who does not give a shit about churn rate. Like you want to come use Sparktoro, you find it valuable, and then you leave. Great. Wonderful. I hope you had a wonderful experience. I hope you come back someday. I hope you recommend it to people. If you never come back, that's fine. Right.
And you open it up so you can use it just one time if you needed to for a big project. You don't need to subscribe to do that. You could just jump in, buy some credits, and done. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you can, right? You can buy like a week of access, use it for a bunch. You can buy 1 month of access and use it, and then cancel your account. We notify you before we bill you, right? Most SaaS businesses don't do that because they know that
charge. Yeah.
Right. They know that notification when it comes through, like, especially if you offer a link. We offer a link, like, let's say you signed up, Steve, right? You would get an email from us 3 days before you're being billed being like, hey, I know most SaaS companies don't send this email, but in 3 days, you're going to be charged. If you want to cancel, you just click right here. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to talk to anybody.
Spend 30 minutes searching the website to find how to cancel, and then get to a page that says to cancel, call customer service, and we're closed right now.
F that. Like, come on, really? That's just crazy.
They all do that.
The weirdest part, I think I was looking the other day, and with the exception of our launch promotion, we actually have a lower average customer churn rate than Moz did when I was running that company. So, there you go. Like, it's
now. Have you used the platform to do your own marketing for Sparktoro yet? Or
oh yeah. I mean, that's that's core to how I built. Like, one of the biggest things that I am doing differently with Sparktoro versus Moz is Moz was very much a like build a community, build a content marketing engine, build it all on that site. And with Sparktoro, I am very much leveraging other people's platforms. Yeah. Right. So as an example, right? Like, oh, Steve, you got a great, stream. Let's do a chat together, and maybe some people will watch this, and maybe they'll go give Sparktoro a spin and try and search for their audiences and see if it's useful for them. And that's how we get between 50 and 100 people to try the product every day.
That's amazing. Right? So, yeah, and we love it. We love the fact that even with an HVAC business, we can find influencers that have a relationship to that industry and line them up, and it's just a great tool. It's brilliant, really.
Yeah, I have been consistently surprised by how niche you can go. I was like toxicologists in Canada. Someone was looking for them related to like pandemic shipping stuff, logistics. And we were like, okay, let's see if there's people who, work in toxicology and logistics. And we were like, oh, look at that. And here's the publications that they read. And here's like this niche podcast. And here's this newsletter or whatever they subscribe to. Who knew, right? So yeah, I like that. But we definitely use it for our own stuff. Like I go and find whatever people and podcasts that reach, folks in different parts of agency world, market research world. That's been actually a really challenging one for me to have.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely, we're dog fooding for sure.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I think the platform's amazing. I got this new thing with StreamYard where there's actually like this little banner. Let me see if I can get this going. So here, check this out. Boom! I stole this from your website. So we'll keep that one running for a couple of minutes as we go into the next question. I think this is on everyone's minds right now. The Whiteboard Friday.
Okay.
Love it. That was amazing. Are you planning on doing something similar sort of routine like back in those days, or have you and I just missed it?
I have been thinking about it, definitely. I think that short term, so I talked to Casey about this. I was like, hey, I have an idea for what I want to do and what I want to call it and sort of a format I want to try for like a next, I don't know exactly what you call it. Not necessarily exclusively whiteboard, but like a video series, content series. And we basically were like, right now, the time commitment and the financial commitment of putting it together, editing it well, doing it well would be
a lot of work
for us.
Yeah, we've been trying to do some ourselves, and it was a very expensive exercise in learning how expensive doing video could be.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I think we basically would need an editor who could give us a couple hours a week, if not more, and then do some, um, obviously the creation, which means my time, and right now, my time very much is a lot of it is marketing and customer service, right? And then product stuff and some sort of website content and that kind of thing. But
yep.
a lot of customer service. We do this thing, Steve, where you probably saw it when you signed up. Like you sign up for Sparktoro, you running some searches, playing around with it, and then you get an email that comes from me that says like, "Hey, is there anything I can help you with in your account?" A lot of people reply to that, right? And it goes right to my personal email. And we also do the same thing for paid accounts. So everybody who signs up for a paid account, I get a notification. And this is one of those, like, when they tell founders do things that don't scale early on, this definitely does not scale, but it's all right. So I go visit everyone's website who signs up, right? I'll go be like, oh, okay, Steve Wiedemann from this agency. Let me go check out their site, see what they do, see some of their client stories. I'll write you an email sort of welcoming you, and then, offer to help out. And those are very personalized.
It's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of, not trying to automate and just building relationships is what it feels like.
Yeah, we're trying to be as like, I am especially passionate about this for our first few hundred customers, because I want to make sure that I have a deep, intimate knowledge of who is buying Sparktoro and what they're using it for and why and how and what's going well for them and what they're struggling with. I think that's one of those things that it's almost like a reflex from my later years at Moz, where I felt like that got away from me. Like I wasn't paying close enough attention to who our customers were and what they needed and wanted and what they were doing.
I can tell you, as a SaaS user, one of the things that I appreciate the most are our case studies showing kind of from beginning to end. So even if it was just sort of like the Google Store did, like we have the Google Store, and you can use this as an analytics test to kind of play around and see what we did and how it worked and what we ranked for. And if you did something like that, where it's kind of a walkthrough, we have XYZ company, and here's what industry they're in, and here's the search they did, and that kind of stuff in the beginning would have been a little bit more helpful for me to jump in and play a little bit more. Eventually, I finally got in and just got my hands dirty with it. But in the beginning, that might have expedited a little bit of our experience as a new customer. Is sort of
so
going.
We have 7 case studies, I think, that are being written up right now.
Nice.
So I sort of interviewed folks like yourself about like how are they using the product. Put those into like we did a little Google survey and then translated those into documents. And then we're working with a technical writer, a contractor who's sort of turning those into documents. And then Casey is working with a designer to build a new case studies section for the site. So that'll be hopefully live in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I read your mind. That's awesome.
Yep. Well, and we knew we had to do that. And it's just one of those, like, what do you prioritize and when, and how fast can you get things done? And
Well, I got some questions that some folks have sent us. One of them was like, here's a scenario. A newbie comes into the SEO world. What would be your best advice on what to focus on, right? As a new SEO. I know I have my answer to that, but I'd love to hear what you would say to somebody who's new in the SEO world and has been watching your videos now, and would love to hear that.
So first off, let's see. I want to give this advice from a thoughtful place and a fully transparent place. So I have not been in SEO for 2.5, almost 3 years now. So my advice may be out of date, and you should take that appropriately. Like I am very focused on Sparktoro these days. And so while, I always have a historic passion for SEO, that is not my area of deep expertise, at least not in the tactical day-to-day anymore. That said, when I gave this advice years ago, I would still give the same advice today, which is I would specialize. And I don't mean specialize like, oh, I help with local SEO. Like, not niche enough. I would go down even further and
dentistry,
say,
or
I would go, I would go by vertical, by industry, and by tactic focus, right? So like if you want to do local keyword SEO, there's no one better than me. If you want to do link building in finance, no one is better at that than me. If you want to do research papers and get those ranking and derive value from lead capture pages in B2B, I'm your guy, right? Or your woman. Like that is, I think, that where I would recommend going. And the reason is because the field is very saturated, but those individual niches are still where you can build up a lot of knowledge. And if you get known for one of those, people will refer you a ton of business.
Right. And to do that, to get into that level of depth, you have to build and understand information architecture for that industry. And to do that, whenever we get a new client, it takes us 3 to 6 months to really do the IA, to really feel out what that sitemap needs to look like in 5 years from now. It's a lot of work. And so by doing just one, you don't have to keep going through that exercise of extensive keyword research. You've already kind of locked down what practice areas or product areas those particular clients need to work in. That's actually really smart. All right, controversial topic. What's your take on the impact of CTR? I know there's folks like Michael Martinez and others that are in disbelief of its impacts. You and Larry Kim, and I'm gonna say myself too, we've done some testing ourselves, believe that it's a healthy ranking signal. I know you said it's been a couple of years, but back before you started at Sparktoro, what's your take on CTR?
Let's see. So
right, it's like
almost definitely too simple by itself. Controversial, Steve. I thought we were going to talk about like Black Lives Matter or the election, or like I want some real controversy, or Mitch McConnell being
I don't know anything about politics.
Screw you.
You're better at politics stuff than me.
I'm rich. I don't care about your stupid diabetes. Like that, let's hope that guy gets what's coming to him. So let's see. But on if CTR is controversial, I don't even want to think about what those topics are considered. No. So historically, I did a bunch of experiments and would get on stages at events and be like, okay, right. Like I'd get on stages at events and be like, Google swears that they don't use queries and clicks as ranking signals, right? That like nothing that we all do on our phones or whatever are going to change the rankings of anything. So everybody pull out your phone, don't connect to the Wi-Fi, like make sure that you're on your, individual thing. And I want you to go to Google and search for wedding dresses Atlanta or wherever I was presenting or something, local or non-local, or I'd be like, what was one of the ones I did? HVAC installer, right? And then see this result that's number 7, it's whoever it was, right? I'd be live on stage. I'd be like, go ahead and click on that result.
And then close your browser.
And then I want you to visit that site, scroll to the bottom. All right, now put away your phone. And then at the end of the presentation, I'd be like, hey, who's ranking number 1 for that thing?
Every time.
Like, no, not every time. It was definitely not every time. If there were not enough people in the room, sometimes it wouldn't work. It was inconsistent. I would say maybe 50, 60% of the time that I did one of these at a presentation, it would pop into the top rankings. It would rise in the rankings relatively rapidly.
I remember doing something similar when I was trying to rank for SEO expert, when I'd have these little events and meetup groups and, hey, where do I rank right now? Oh, you're number 4. Well, what do you think of the page? Right. And then, a week later, wow, look, I moved up,
Oh,
so
weird.
Yeah, I always remind people it's not just about the click. We've got to get them to want to stay. User behavior signals aren't just clicking. It's proving to the search engine that you were a helpful result.
I mean, the team from Microsoft is like, what? Of course we use pogo sticking as a ranking signal. Like, what the hell else would you use? That's like one of the most important things is whether somebody bounces back to the search result or whether they stay and solve their problem on the website. And of course, Google is like, we don't use clicks.
Well, they don't want people doing like query spam and, like some of the experiments we did back in 2010, I think you helped with too, was understanding what the impact of the, autocomplete, right? How do we influence what shows up in autocomplete?
Well, and there, Danny Sullivan published that recent blog post that was like very specific. Like, yes, we use user and usage data signals. So like when lots of people in your area or who've traveled from here to there, like you ever get that thing where back when we could travel, right? You'd fly to a city, you'd get into a hotel and you'd search for whatever restaurants near, and it would autocomplete to like your hotel or the neighborhood you're in. And you'd be like, whoa, how do they know? Oh, because thousands of other travelers like me who've landed and taken this route,
clicking and going to those
searched
pages
for exactly this thing, right? And yeah, so look, these behavioral pattern things, you can see it right in the congressional testimony that Sundar Pichai gave to the U.S. House of Representatives. What was that, in December of last year? And then there was sort of the follow-up this year, and there was a document dump, right? So the House of Representatives like requested all these documents, internal documents from Google. And there was an email in there from the leadership team, right, to Larry and Sergey. And one of the things that's in there is we should double down on user signals like searches and clicks so that we can build up like our, so that no one will be able to compete with us in the future because our ranking algorithm will be so strong based on the user and usage data. And then you deny it, to the SEO community. I'm like, yeah, I kind of believe the internal email that you gave to Congress.
Right.
That's like, I think that's the true story.
And they must know it because even Amazon Mechanical Turk, now blocks you if you try to do any sort of search manipulation using it. So it's like, it's too obvious. So
well, and for anybody who's like, oh, it's ripe for abuse. What's ripe for abuse is AdWords click fraud or Google Ads click fraud.
That's expensive abuse.
Yeah, and that abuse is a problem that Google has been working on for decades, and that, in my opinion, they've done such a good job solving and being able to figure out what is authentic and not authentic, that it seems very clear that they know what is real human behavior and not. And if they can do that on the ad side, obviously they can do it on the organic side and apply the same, data thoughtfulness and signal interpretation to their query and click algorithm, right? To their pogo sticking analysis. So, I don't believe, like when some of these like whatever Google webmaster representatives, I'm like, man, I don't even know if you talk to the engineering team. Like I'm not sure how much you know about this. You are a PR rep. I believe you about as much as, somebody who's running for Congress. Like it just, I don't buy it.
Interesting. Yeah. So I do get a lot of flack whenever I talk about our experiments in CTR, but I can tell you every single time, as long as the page was helpful, it seemed to work.
I don't understand. What is the SEO community like? Not SEO community. I get that it's a few misanthropes who are whatever. They think that by ginning up this controversy, they can like have a fun time. Or I think there's a lot of like, I should support what the Google representative says because then that helps to create a relationship between myself and the Googler. And that makes me look better. And like, maybe I can email them and maybe they'll do favors for me or whatever it is. So it's kind of a political thing. I get that too. But I don't totally understand the like infighting element. It doesn't seem productive to me. And who out there is like, don't try to make your page get more clicks in Google? Well, what kind of advice is that? Why would you listen to someone who tells you that?
Yeah, it's so strange. But at least there's more tests we can run. There's more emphasis on trying to provide richer results so that you do get more of the clicks, whether it is or is not, even though we kind of know it is, whether it is or is not. By having richer results, we still get more of the clicks because we stand out. And so I've been really encouraging our clients to experiment with new markup and to try to provide events and things that really make our listings stand out. One of our restaurant chains, we did an event where we put the markup on 1,700 of their local pages, and every location would appear with that extra row that said, check out our new special that's happening right now. And it had a link directly to it. So it was, and it was really interesting to watch, how users interact, with really rich content, both, in the search result and then of course, on the page itself.
I wonder what's the counter argument, right? Like if you talk to some of these people who are against it, what do they say? Like, stop trying to get the clicks to go to your website.
Yeah, I think
that's a bad idea
they're just trying
because
to disprove the exercises, the test and the experiment. That's their whole thing is, well, that experiment doesn't really account for, and that experiment's invalid because of, I think that's their angle. I don't know.
sure. I just don't understand the goal. Like, do they want their clients to get fewer clicks in the search results? Maybe they don't have clients. I don't know.
Right. You're onto something there. Cool. I got a couple more. I know we're getting close to the end here. Thanks for hanging out with me too. This
Oh
has been
yeah, of
so
course,
much
man.
fun. It's about time we finally get to hang out.
Yeah.
So
All right, sure.
Entrepreneur posts recently about the death of SEO as ads consume the results above the fold. And we saw this happen with ask.com before they fired Jeeves, right? What's your feeling on this? Have you been keeping up enough to know, kind of all these new changes that have happened in the search results where pretty much everything above the fold is ads now?
Yeah. So let's see. For the last several years, right, I've been tracking and reporting on kind of the decline in percentage of clicks that happen on Google and the increase in the percentage of clicks that go back to an Alphabet-owned property, right? Google itself, YouTube, their other properties, that kind of thing. And the reality is that this is a true phenomenon, right? Less than half of all clicks now result less than half of all searches now result in a click, and significantly less than half result in a click to a non-Alphabet property, because Google itself is the primary beneficiary or the biggest beneficiary of Google searches. That's where that's where the most searches go. I think something like 6% of all searches end on another Google property, Maps or YouTube or what have you. So yes, that's a real thing. The ad click-through rate has grown, not nearly as significantly as I think a lot of people think it has. It has grown, but by like a couple percent. It's really the rich results and the zero-click searches that have resulted in this. So
I haven't seen a
does
lot of
that
that on
mean?
commercial search terms, though. Commercial search terms still seem to render a lot more organic, and you have, of course, some ads, but on the zero click, it seems to be more of the informational upper funnel, which can affect your remarketing efforts significantly. But fortunately, I haven't seen a lot of those types of results for, like, I don't know, car accident lawyer near me, or I'd see it for something like what to do after a car accident, where they throw in a checklist or something. But fortunately, I haven't seen it much on commercial terms. But yeah, I feel the same thing. I'm looking at all the data, and I do see a lot fewer clicks happening than previously. Remember last year, one of our clients had a statistics page, and it just drove a ton of traffic. And then as soon as they got that featured snippet, that number went down.
Yeah, no, and that's very frustrating, right? I have a lot of empathy for folks who are going through that. I think that certainly that does mean that you have to do more in other niche sources. And this is part of the conceit of Sparktoro. Like, the reason that we entered this field was to help people find ways to get top and middle of funnel sort of influence, right? To reach an audience that wasn't exclusively through Google and Facebook. And I would say that it is also the case that the death of SEO, that is, I don't want to say it's a dumb takeaway, but it is the wrong takeaway, right?
It's still a little bit of clickbait more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So SEO is not exclusively about driving traffic from the search results to a given property.
Or just web search. It's not just web search. It's
right.
Image,
that is
product.
Yeah, that is one goal, right? One goal is like, I want to rank so that I get the clicks, so that I get the visit, so that I can do my marketing. But another goal is to influence the information that Google provides. Mm-hmm. And there are more searches taking place on Google than ever before, from more places, from more people, and the pandemic has only accelerated that. And so SEO is so far from dead, right? The furthest from dead that it's ever been. It is bigger, more powerful, more influential than ever. You just have to think about, especially top of funnel, you've got to think about, how do I impact those zero-click searches? How do I impact people's, the information that they're getting inside of Google's SERP, as opposed to exclusively driving the click to my website?
course. Yeah, and we've seen studies in the past that show that if you're doing both paid and organic, that there's a higher likelihood of getting the click in one or the other if you've got more visibility or more real estate in the search results. And we've been teaching some of the students, particularly in my SEO analytics class at San Diego, is really around marrying that data. I mean, Google's given you so much data to work with in search terms, in placement reports for link building.
Well, they used to. They took a bunch of it away in September.
Yeah, I know. It's not. It didn't take that much away though. It's still
25%.
Yeah.
That's
Well, those are really, really. I mean, you're talking about like rank brain keywords though. Those are like really, really long phrase search terms in some of them, right? That don't get a lot of volume.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
I saw the SEER data, right? It was like 25%
Oh yeah, I saw that.
gone, of search terms gone in PPC, and a resulting
Will was pissed.
14% increase in price.
Yeah, I haven't seen an increase in price yet, but I definitely don't see as much data, which is a little discouraging. But you know what? If we're ranking organically for those search terms, we still get a lot of helpful info in Search Console. But we just roll with the punches. But yeah, I can see what Google's agenda is. We obviously need to make more money. We need to fix a little bit of the loss that we had during the pandemic. And I'm sure that all kind of played a part in it. By the way, I heard on my little list here that that you're opening up in Brazil, or hopefully open up in Brazil at some point. Our team members like, what's going on?
Brazil. No, so let's see. Sparktoro, I assume you mean Sparktoro. Sparktoro is currently mostly English language centric. Okay. However, yeah, I sent a tweet earlier today about how you can get data around mostly English language profiles that are in other locations. Okay. So Portugal, for example, was one of the ones that I sent. But the reality is that probably it'll be 2021 where we'll be experimenting and expanding to a lot more German and Spanish language profiles first. And then, depending on how that goes, hopefully, French, Italian, Portuguese, and more geographic coverage for us comes mostly from language coverage.
Gotcha. Yeah, our office down there in Brazil has been just, really growing fast. There's a huge market now, and I think a lot of it's pandemic too. So it's and to be able to have that capability to figure out who it is we need to connect to that could build relationships that may culminate into links down the road is a big thing. Well, hey, we're almost at the end. What I've been thinking about doing is this little lightning round of questions. If you're up for it, just super fast, and then we'll wrap it up. So first one is favorite 3 SEO tools aside from the obvious.
Man, I don't do SEO anymore.
Okay, at all.
All right, how about I will go very broad. The 3 tools that I use, they're not necessarily SEO, but 3 tools that I use a lot. Wistia, which is, I use the Soapbox for making little videos. I love it. I think it is terrific. I'm a big fan of Profitwell, which is how we track all of our SaaS data and customers and revenue and those kinds of things. Phenomenal tool there. I'm also a huge fan of, speaking of David Mim, Tidings. If you are not familiar with Tidings, that is a phenomenal product, especially for small local businesses to affordably build email newsletters from content they're already almost certainly creating.
Right.
I think
it's also the name of his newsletter.
So, yes. Yeah. So tidings.co. I would urge anybody who's in local to check that out.
All right. Somebody new in search. Who should we be following on social media?
Oh man, search. I don't know. Ask people in SEO. Let's see. So no, I could tell you a few folks that I am very impressed by, who you might not already be following. No, actually, I'm looking at who I'm following, and Andy Jarvis is great. XMO Marketing does a great podcast on SEO. Super relevant topics there. I am also, Mary Owusu. She's at Analytics Mary on Twitter. Speaking of teachers, right? She does some work for a university. I think up in Buffalo, and a bunch of digital marketing and analytics specific stuff.
Sure.
So she's also great.
Nice. All right. Well, what SEO myth do you see still that drives you crazy?
Gosh.
Or was prior to...
I still find a ton of people quoting Google's representatives as though the information that they give you is valuable, accurate, and driven by good intent. And
Right.
historically and currently, I have rarely found that to be true. So I am confused and curious as to why that still is true. Like, I wish Google were giving us real information, but I think they have demonstrated to the community that is not the case. So biggest SEO myth is Google's representatives are giving you consistently accurate information.
Interesting. All right. Fastest way to rank a new page in organic search results.
Fastest?
Let's say for a non-super competitive keyword. I remember some of the experiments that you did.
This still works. I see it all the time. Get a buttload of people to tweet it.
Okay. Really? Interesting.
Still works.
Huh. Okay.
Which is no surprise, right? Because Google recreated their relationship with Twitter. So now you see tweets inside of Google. They've got the fire hose. They have the API. Like, they're obviously right in there. And so Google will say, tweet, we don't count tweets and tweeted links, blah, 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 blah. I don't care if you count them or don't count them. I don't care what you tell me or don't tell me. All I care about is what works. I can tell you when I see a URL from a brand new website, brand new thing, and tons of people are sharing it. What do you know?
Wow.
It ranks surprisingly fast.
Twitter's stocks are going to go up now because you said that. So people are going to start moving off LinkedIn and going to Twitter. Well, awesome. Let's see. So Google Maps, same thing. How do you rank in Google Maps quickly? What's your fastest way to move up a listing for, I don't know, let's say personal injury lawyer?
Yeah. Let's see. You probably want to hold a political rally that invites a bunch of controversy with protesters and counter protesters, because then you will get covered by lots of news sources and tons of people will go to you. And those two signals combined are basically coverage plus links, plus topical relevance, plus the maps, right? Like all these phones going to your location, that will drive up your rankings in local very quickly.
I see. We always tell our clients do local events, but man, you took it to the extreme on that one. That's awesome.
There you go. Well, you want local events that are in coverage, right? So you should, by the way, don't take that advice. Dear God, so many people, hundreds of thousands of people are dying from COVID. Wear goddamn masks. Do not have in-person events. The Sturgis motorcycle rally was responsible for what, like 200,000 cases of COVID just by itself. Don't do that.
Yep. Stay safe. All right, next one. Let's see. Most important landing page SEO focal point.
Landing page focal point. In my opinion, the most important aspect of a landing page is that it serves your customers and potential customers well, right? Basically delivers their needs to them, solves their problem. If it's a search query that's their problem, it solves that search query in the best possible way, better than anybody else in the search results. If the goal is to help them solve a problem around getting access to a product, it does that as rapidly as possible. We've done a bunch of optimization around this with Sparktoro, trying to figure out, like, when do we ask people to register? And it's, for us, it's between the search query and the search results that has tended to work best. But I think it's probably different for every different business and landing page. I would just think about serve your users before you serve yourself.
I just did the top 10 or 10 tips for 10 days. And that was actually one of my tips as well. So same page here. Best link building technique, and without doing any sort of rallies or political.
I personally, I'll tell you the one that works the very best for me, podcasts. Every time you are on someone's podcast, 5 to 10 websites will link to you, because podcasts, like, they sync their content to whatever it is, Stitcher and Libsyn and Apple and blah, 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 blah. So all these places have either a direct link or a citation. Some of them are followed, some of them are no followed. Usually the person's actual website is followed, and then they get shared on social and those link to you. I freaking love guesting on podcasts. Like it is, it's great
And
for.
see, I thought you just wanted to hang out with me, you know?
Oh yeah, no, Steve, I'm here for the link. No, I don't think StreamYard even gives a link. No. But like, I'm just saying, when you are on other people's podcasts, you get all this attention back to you and amplification, and those signals are very, very helpful for.
Right, not just the link, but like some of the experiments you've done before with co-occurrence and so forth. So I get it.
I mean, obviously Google is using that, right? That's how they determine what an entity is and how they build associations between words and phrases and concepts and websites and people and all that stuff.
Yep, I remember when I was doing that SEO expert exercise, I would have people search for my name and then SEO expert in quotes and show them the volume of occurrences. So it was kind of fun. We're at the end. We're over a little bit. Let's see. EAT signals are more important on the website or off the website?
They only matter to me in the kitchen.
Yeah. I can agree with that. So my wife makes some killer tacos, so I'm with you on that one.
I've been experimenting with tacos al pastor. Very challenging to make, but delicious.
Okay. Oh man, you're making me hungry. So anything on Eat at all or no?
That's all I got.
Pass. Okay, cool. And last one, does offline marketing help with keyword rankings?
A, who cares? And B, yes.
I love it. Well, Rand, you've been absolutely amazing to hang out with, and we totally have to do this again, even if it's not recorded for other people to share with us. Is there anything you'd like to tell those folks who are watching down the road about Sparktoro or any sort of final
sure. Yeah. So one of the nice things about Sparktoro, you can try it for free. Anybody can go run a bunch of searches, 10 searches a month. We have a forever free plan. So you just go to the website, sparktoro.com, and you can play with it, find your audience, see what they pay attention to. If you're in SEO, you're probably doing link building with it. If you're in content, you're probably doing amplification with it, but all that stuff is there.
And even if you're doing influencer marketing, it still can culminate into links down the road. So
it depends what you mean by influencer marketing, right? So like if it's the pay half naked people $500 on Instagram to pose with your product sort of influencer marketing, we're not so good at that, but we're great at the
advertising, influencer marketing.
We're good at the more sort of broad, big picture sources of influence marketing. How about that?
I took my free credits. I loved it, and eventually, we used them enough, played with them enough that I just said I got to get an account. So it's been amazing, and I definitely for anyone watching, if you haven't checked out Sparktoro yet, give it a try. It doesn't cost anything.
It's free to try. It won't cost you anything.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. This is Steve Wiedemann and Rand Fishkin. Thank you so much, Rand, and I'll hit end broadcast.
Yeah,
bye, everyone.
Love it.